Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Definitely. Always up for a good deep dive.
Well, today we're tackling Tiny Beautiful Things by Cheryl Strayed. Specifically, we're looking at the 10th anniversary edition.
Oh, cool. I actually haven't read that one yet, so there's new material.
Yep, even more wisdom from Sugar.
Sugar.
Right, that was her advice-giving alter ego. So it's basically Strayed, but under this pseudonym, doling out advice on life, love, loss, you name it.
Oh, yeah, right. I remember hearing about that. So it's kind of like an advice column, but in book form.
Exactly. But it's not your typical advice column.
Mm-hmm.
Strayed gets really personal, really honest, really raw. It's like getting a cheat sheet to life's toughest questions, but with this incredible vulnerability woven through it.
I can see why people love it. It's so much more relatable when someone's willing to be that open and honest, you know?
Totally. And the whole story behind how she became Sugar is pretty interesting, too. It was actually Steve Almond, an author she really admired.
No way. So he was the one who kind of pushed her into it.
Yeah, basically. He saw something special in her writing, this depth of empathy, and just this willingness to be vulnerable. And he knew she'd be amazing at giving advice.
That's awesome. I love that. Okay, so what are some of the letters that really stuck with you?
Oh, there are so many. But one that always comes to mind is the one from Johnny. He asked this very simple question. When is it right to say, I love you?
Yeah, the age-old question.
Right. And most advice columnists would probably give some generic answer about following your heart or waiting for the right moment.
For sure.
But Strayed, she goes in a totally different direction. She shares this powerful story about her own mother and her mother's last word to her.
Wow.
Yeah. And that word was just love.
Oh, wow.
It's so simple, but it's so profound, right?
Yeah.
And it really captures her whole approach to love and relationships. It's not about finding the perfect moment or saying the perfect words. It's about recognizing the power of love in all its forms and expressing it freely.
I love that. And it also shows how she brings her own experiences into her advice. It's not just theoretical, it's deeply personal.
Exactly. And it's not all serious either. Like, she calls Johnny, the guy asking about love, Dudelio at one point.
Ah, okay, that's funny.
Right. And then she talks about having this late-night conversation with Mr. Sugar, like it's another person, about what advice to give.
That's cute. I think that's what makes her advice so approachable. It's real, it's funny, sometimes even a bit irreverent, but always with this underlying current of compassion.
Completely agree. And speaking of compassion, she really shows that in the letter from the woman who's struggling with guilt and grief after a miscarriage.
Oh, man. That's such a heavy topic. I'm curious how she handles that.
It's beautifully done. She really emphasizes honesty and vulnerability. Like, she tells the woman to stop pretending that everything's okay, to find a support group, and to be open with her partner.
Yeah, that makes sense. Bottling things up never helps.
Right. And it's not just about getting through this difficult time. It's about using that experience as a way to connect more deeply and build a stronger foundation for the future.
It's almost like she's saying, lean into the discomfort, feel the pain, and let it shape you into a more compassionate and resilient person.
You got it. That's straight in a nutshell. And honestly, that whole idea of embracing discomfort, using it as a catalyst for growth, that's a thread that runs through the entire book.
I can see that. It's so easy to want to avoid difficult things, but sometimes those experiences are the ones that teach us the most.
Totally. And it's not just about enduring hardship. It's about actively seeking out experiences that challenge you, push you beyond your comfort zone.
Like she did when she hiked the Pacific Crest Trail.
Exactly. Okay, so this next letter is from a young man, he signs it, suffocated, and he's dealing with something really tough. Coming to terms with his sexuality while facing immense pressure from his family to conform.
Oh, wow. I can only imagine how difficult that must be.
Right. And Strayed doesn't sugarcoat anything. She tells him straight up to leave that toxic environment.
Good for her. Sometimes you just have to get out for your own sanity.
Exactly. And she encourages him to find a community that accepts him for who he is, his chosen family.
It's so important to surround yourself with people who support and celebrate you, especially when you're going through something like that.
Totally. And Strayed doesn't just stop there. She talks about the It Gets Better project, the one with all those videos. And she acknowledges that it's a positive message, but she also points out that it didn't just get better for those people, they made it better.
That's a great point. It's not about passively waiting for things to improve. It's about actively creating the change you want to see.
Exactly. It's about having the courage to live your truth and fight for your rights.
Powerful stuff. Okay, what else? Give me another letter that blew your mind.
Okay, this one's a bit lighter, But it really highlights Strade's ability to offer nuanced perspectives, even on seemingly simple situations. It's from a guy who calls himself Odd Man Out, and he writes about overhearing his friends gossiping about him.
Oof. Yeah, that's never fun.
Right. And it opens up this whole conversation about friendship, honesty, and boundaries.
I can see how that would get complicated quickly.
It does. But instead of just condemning all gossip as bad, Straight makes this distinction between healthy and unhealthy gossip. She talks about the importance of intention.
I like that. It's not just about what's being said, but why it's being said.
Exactly. And her advice to Odd Man Out isn't to just avoid his friends or pretend nothing happened. She encourages him to have this honest conversation with them, to talk about how their words made him feel, and to set boundaries.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Ignoring it probably wouldn't be healthy in the long run.
Right, and I think this advice is even more relevant now with social media and everything. It's so easy for gossip to spread like wildfire.
Oh, absolutely. It's a good reminder to be mindful of our words and to communicate with empathy and respect.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about a letter that really hit me hard. It's from Ruler, and he's this father struggling with addiction and depression. He feels trapped, totally overwhelmed, and like a total failure.
Man, that's a lot to carry. What does Strayed say to him?
Her response is both compassionate and practical. She really emphasizes the importance of seeking professional help, not just for his own sake, but for his family and his business too.
Yeah, it's so easy to isolate yourself when you're struggling, but reaching out for help is crucial.
It is. And I was really struck by how she stresses self-care, even in the midst of all this chaos. She tells him that prioritizing his mental and physical health isn't selfish, it's essential.
Absolutely. You can't pour from an empty cup. You have to take care of yourself to be able to take care of others.
Exactly. And it's a good reminder that seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness. There are resources available, people who understand, and strategies that can help you get through even the toughest times.
So true. It's okay to ask for help.
Mhm.
Okay, what other letters are we diving into today?
All right, this one's interesting. It's from a young woman who's torn between staying in her comfy relationship or pursuing her dreams.
Ooh, the classic dilemma. Comfort versus growth. What does Sugar say?
Well, she uses this really cool metaphor, the bundle on the head.
The bundle on the head. Okay, I'm intrigued.
Right. It's basically about how we can become so accustomed to things that we stop really seeing them. Like, they're there, but we become so used to them, we don't even notice them anymore.
I get it. Like that old saying, familiarity breeds contempt.
Exactly. And so she's encouraging this woman to pay attention to those things, to really examine what she's settling for, and then to make choices that align with her true desires.
It's all about trusting your gut, even if it means taking risks and facing uncertainty.
Absolutely. Okay, this next one is from Beast with a Limp, and it tackles a topic that's often considered taboo.
Oh, what is it?
Feeling unlovable because of a physical disability.
Wow, that's heavy.
It is. And instead of offering platitudes or minimizing his feelings, Straight does something really powerful. She shares a story about her friend Ian, who was severely burned.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And despite his physical challenges, Ian lived a full life. He found love, pursued his passions, embraced his imperfections.
That's a beautiful story. It really challenges those societal norms we have around beauty and worthiness.
Exactly. It reminds us that true beauty goes way beyond physical appearance. And often our imperfections are what make us unique and lovable.
I love that. So it's a call to embrace our vulnerabilities and challenge those limiting beliefs we have about ourselves and others.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that true connection comes from accepting ourselves and each other for who we truly are.
Flaws and all.
Flaws and all.
It really is.
Yeah.
All right, what's next on our tiny, beautiful things journey?
Okay, this next letter is from Mourning and Raging. A woman who's, well, mourning and raging after her husband had an affair.
Oh, man. That's rough. I bet she's furious with the other woman.
She is. But instead of fueling that anger or encouraging blame, Strayed offers this perspective that's all about healing and growth.
Interesting. How does she approach that?
She tells her to focus on her marriage, on trying to repair what's been broken, and to try and accept what happened.
Even if she doesn't want to forgive her husband or the other woman.
Exactly. Straight's not saying forgiveness is easy or immediate, but she does highlight the power of acceptance and moving forward.
Makes sense. Holding on to that anger and resentment, it's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Right. It's about finding a way to let go, to release yourself from that negativity. And what struck me was how Strayed emphasizes channeling that anger into something constructive.
Oh, that's interesting. So not just suppressing it, but using it as fuel for positive change.
Exactly. Okay, ready for another letter?
Bring it on.
This one's from a woman who really wants to have a child, but her boyfriend is kind of on the fence about it.
Oh, that's a tough one. Kids are a big deal.
Right. And Strade's perspective on motherhood is refreshingly honest. She acknowledges the incredible joy it can bring, but she also doesn't shy away from the challenges.
Like what? Did she give specific examples?
Yeah, she even describes children as these giant, endless suck machines who will bring you to your knees.
Uh-huh. Wow. That's pretty blunt.
It is. But I think that honesty is important.
Right.
She's not trying to scare anyone away from having kids, but she's definitely encouraging people to go into it with eyes wide open.
To make an informed decision, not just based on societal pressure or romantic notions.
Exactly. Okay, this next letter is, well, it's a bit uncomfortable.
Oh, what's that?
A woman writes to Sugar about her father revealing way too much information about his personal life, like infidelity, even mentioning that her mother considered aborting her.
Yikes. Yeah, that's definitely oversharing.
Right. And Straight handles it really well. She validates the woman's feelings, saying it's totally normal to feel uncomfortable and to want to set boundaries.
That's good. It's important to acknowledge those feelings, not just brush them off.
Yeah. And then she gives this practical advice about redirecting the conversation. Like, if her dad starts going down that key MI path again, she can try to steer him towards other topics, things he might be more hesitant to share, but that would create a healthier dialogue.
I like that. It's a way to shift the dynamic without shutting him down completely.
Exactly. Okay, are you ready for a letter that might hit a little close to home for us?
Let me guess. It's about imposter syndrome, or the struggle to be creative when bills are piling up.
Huh, you got it. It's from a writer who's struggling with jealousy towards more successful peers.
Ah, yes, the classic comparison trap. We've all been there.
Right. And what Strayed does so brilliantly is she breaks down the difference between art and commerce.
Oh, that's interesting. So she's saying to focus on the craft itself, the joy of creation, rather than getting caught up in the whole marketplace of success.
Exactly. She reminds the writer that someone else's success doesn't diminish their own. There's enough abundance to go around.
It's a great reminder to stay in your own lane, focus on your own journey, and find fulfillment in the process, not just the outcome.
Okay, ready for a love story with a twist.
Always hit me with it.
This letter is from a woman. She calls herself Lusty Broad, and she's 47, a lesbian, and finds herself in this intense relationship, but it's not really meeting her needs.
Oh, I see. So lots of passion, maybe, but not a lot of depth.
You got it. And Stray's response is pretty insightful. She kind of calls this woman out on her own fear, her tendency to settle for drama instead of seeking true intimacy.
It's like she's saying, you're worthy of a love that nourishes your soul, not just fuels your drama.
Exactly. And she reminds her that desperation isn't a sustainable foundation for a lasting relationship. You need more than just highs and lows.
It's about finding a connection that's both exciting and grounding, passionate and peaceful.
Exactly. Okay, this next one's from Desperate, and they're carrying a lot of guilt from their past. They stole from people, lied, and are really struggling to forgive themselves.
That's tough. Guilt can be such a heavy burden to carry.
It is. And Straight's response is so full of compassion. She even shares her own experience with stealing, talking about how loneliness and this yearning to fill a void can drive people to do things they regret.
It's a good reminder that we all make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes come from a place of pain or unmet needs.
And she says something really powerful. Lonely isn't a crime.
Wow. That's really beautiful.
Right. It's like she's acknowledging the humanity in even the most flawed actions.
And what advice does she give Desperate?
She encourages them to focus on making amends through their current actions, to practice self-forgiveness, and to find healthy ways to connect with others.
That's great. It's about moving forward with integrity and compassion, both for yourself and others.
Okay, brace yourself. This next one is heartbreaking.
Oh no, what is it?
It's from Living Dead Dad, a father who's grieving the loss of his son.
Oh man, that's just devastating. I can't even imagine.
It's one of those letters that just rips your heart out. And Strade's response is equally powerful. She doesn't offer platitudes or easy answers. She simply sits with his pain, acknowledges the depth of his grief.
Yeah, sometimes there are no words. Just being present with someone's pain is the most powerful thing you can do.
It really is. And it's a testament to the power of empathy. Sometimes the most profound comfort comes from just being seen and understood.
Absolutely. Okay, give me a happier letter. I need a little lift after that
All
one.
right, how about this one? It's from Happily Ever After. A woman who's about to get married, but she's suddenly filled with doubts.
Pre-wedding jitters.
Kind of. But it's more than that. She just found out that this couple she's always admired, this seemingly perfect couple, well, they're dealing with infidelity.
Oof, that's got to be a reality check.
It is. And Strade's response is both honest and reassuring. She shares her own experience with infidelity in her marriage.
No way. She's been through that too.
Yeah. And she talks about how important it is to have open communication and confront challenges head on. It's about recognizing that no relationship is perfect and that navigating complexities is actually part of building a strong and lasting bond.
It's like she's saying, throw out the fairy tale ending and embrace the messy reality of human connection.
Exactly. Okay, are you ready for a letter that's a bit more provocative?
Always up for a good challenge. Lay it on me.
This one is from Fathomless Bird of Truth. She's feeling really lost and desperate, financially strapped. And her husband has this, well, an interesting suggestion.
Interesting how you phrase that. What's the suggestion?
He thinks she should consider sex work to make ends meet.
Whoa, that's pretty extreme.
It is. And Strade's response is both empowering and validating. She acknowledges how tough things are financially, but ultimately tells her to listen to her gut and respect her own boundaries.
That's important. It's her body, her choice.
Exactly. Strade reminds her that she has the right to say no, regardless of the circumstances.
And that her worth isn't tied to her financial situation or the choices she makes.
Okay, this next letter is from someone who's made the really tough decision to cut ties with their abusive father.
Man, that's heavy. Family stuff can be so complicated.
It can. And Strade, again, draws from her own experience. She talks about the pain and longing that comes with estrangement, but also the importance of prioritizing your own well-being.
Yeah, sometimes you have to create that distance for your own safety and sanity.
Exactly. And what I found so insightful was what she said about forgiveness. It's not something you do for the other person, it's for you.
It's about letting go of that resentment and anger, finding peace within yourself.
Exactly. And she makes it clear that forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. You can forgive someone without letting them back into your life.
Okay, lighten the mood a bit. Give me a fun one.
All right, how about this? It's from Man Juggler.
Man, juggler. Okay, I'm all ears.
He's navigating the world of casual dating and feeling totally overwhelmed by trying to juggle multiple partners.
Uh-huh, sounds exhausting.
Right. And Strade's response is surprisingly philosophical. She uses this analogy about negative space in art.
Negative space. Interesting.
Yeah, like how the empty spaces in a painting are just as important as the areas that are filled in. It's all about balance.
I see. So she's saying that sometimes the space between relationships, that time for reflection and self-discovery is just as important as the relationships themselves?
Exactly. It's a reminder to find a pace that feels authentic to you, to prioritize quality over quantity.
It's like that saying, you can't be everything to everyone, but you can be everything to someone.
Okay, this next letter touches on a topic that I think a lot of people struggle with: body image and the fear of being vulnerable in intimate relationships.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's a big one. We're bombarded with all these unrealistic beauty standards, and it's easy to internalize those messages.
It is. And Strade's response is all about embracing imperfection and challenging those internalized beliefs.
How does she suggest doing that?
She encourages the writer to be honest with their partner about their insecurities and to remember that true intimacy involves vulnerability and acceptance.
Yeah, it's about finding a partner who sees you, truly sees you, and loves you for who you are, not who they think you should be.
Exactly. Okay, how about a letter that dives into the world of, shall we say, TMI?
Uh-huh. I'm all for it. Spill the tea.
This one is from someone who's feeling overwhelmed because their partner constantly shares details about their past sexual experiences.
Ooh, yeah, I can see how that would be a bit much.
It is. And Strade's response is all about finding that balance between sharing and respecting boundaries.
So open communication, but also recognizing that sometimes less is more.
Exactly. And she suggests this really interesting exercise, taking turns telling each other stories that make them feel vulnerable.
That's cool. It's like creating a space for shared vulnerability and deepening their understanding of each other's emotional landscapes.
Okay, this next one is about something that's probably on a lot of people's minds these days: student loan debt.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It can feel so overwhelming.
It can. And Strade's response is a mix of tough love and empowerment. She tells the writer to stop feeling sorry for themselves and take ownership of their financial situation.
So tough love, but also practical advice.
Exactly. Like, she talks about how paying your own bills, even if it's a struggle, can actually bring a sense of freedom.
I can see that. It's about taking responsibility and building self-reliance.
And she emphasizes the lessons learned from having to work hard and make sacrifices.
Like resilience, resourcefulness, and a deeper appreciation for what you have.
Exactly. Okay, ready for a story about second chances?
Always, let's hear it.
This letter is from someone who's been estranged from their parents for years and suddenly gets an email out of the blue.
Wow, talk about a curveball.
Right. And Saeed's advice is to consider forgiveness, but not for the parents' sake, for their own.
So it's not about condoning their parents' actions, but about releasing themselves from the burden of resentment.
Exactly. And she emphasizes that forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. You could forgive someone and still choose to keep your distance.
That's an important distinction. Forgiveness is about finding peace within yourself, not necessarily about letting someone back into your life.
Okay, this next one is heavy. The writer's dealing with the fear of inheriting a genetic predisposition to cancer.
Oh, man, that's a scary thought.
It is, and he's worried about burdening his partner with the possibility of his illness and death.
Yeah, I can see how that would weigh heavily on a relationship.
And Strade's response is both compassionate and practical. She tells him to be honest with his partner about his fears, but also to avoid catastrophizing.
So don't dwell on what might happen, focus on the present.
Exactly. She emphasizes the importance of living in the moment, focusing on what he can control: his actions, his choices, and his attitude.
It's a good reminder that we can't control everything, but we can choose how we respond to challenges.
Okay, have you ever been in a situation where you're trying to support someone who's grieving, but you just feel lost?
Oh, yeah. It's so hard to know what to say or do. You want to be there for them, but you also don't want to say the wrong thing.
This next letter is exactly about that. The writer is trying to support his girlfriend who's lost her mother, but he's feeling kind of helpless.
What does Strayed recommend?
She emphasizes the importance of simply being present, just listening without judgment, offering support without trying to fix things or minimize her feelings.
Yeah, that makes sense. Grief is such a personal and unpredictable process. There's no right or wrong way to do it.
Right. And sometimes the most supportive thing you can do is just be there, hold space for their pain, and let them grieve in their own way.
Okay, give me another one. I'm ready for more sugar wisdom.
All right, this one is about those messy boundaries that can happen between friendship and romantic relationships.
Oh, I've definitely been there. It can get complicated fast. What's the situation?
The writer's ex started dating a mutual friend, and there are some hurt feelings.
Ouch. Yeah, that's a tough spot. Loyalty versus love, mixed with a little bit of jealousy.
Right. And Straight encourages honesty and self-awareness. She tells the writer to examine their own motivations, figure out where those hurt feelings are coming from, and then set clear boundaries with both the friend and the ex.
Yeah, communication is key in those situations. It's about being honest with yourself and with others about what you need and what you can handle.
Okay, let's talk about a challenge that many parents face: knowing when to let go.
Ah, the empty nest syndrome. That's got to be tough.
It is. This letter is from someone whose adult sons are still living at home, and they seem perfectly content, but it's causing a strain on the parent and their relationship with their partner.
Oh, I see. So it's not just about the kids leaving, it's about the impact on the parents' relationship.
Exactly. And Strade's advice is all about recognizing that our roles as parents evolve as our children grow. Sometimes the most supportive thing we can do is let go.
Yeah, it's about empowering them to become independent, even if it's hard to watch them stumble.
And she talks about the importance of setting boundaries, even when it's difficult. Sometimes the most loving act is to encourage independence, even if it means pushing your kids out of their comfort zone.
It's tough, but it's true. Okay, I'm curious, what other parenting challenges does Strayed address in the book?
Okay, this next one is from Helpless Mom, and she's struggling with anger management. She's worried about repeating the patterns of her own volatile upbringing, especially now that she has kids of her own.
That's a heavy burden to carry. It's one thing to struggle with your own anger, but it's another level when you're worried about impacting your children.
It is. And Strade's response is both compassionate and practical. She encourages Helpless Mom to seek professional help, to manage her anger, and develop healthier coping mechanisms.
Yeah, it's okay to ask for help. In fact, it's often the bravest and most loving thing you can do.
Exactly. And she reminds her that seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness. and that it's never too late to break those negative cycles and create a healthier and happier environment for yourself and your kids.
So true. Okay, what's next?
This next letter is for anyone who's ever felt stuck in a rut. The writer is feeling unfulfilled, both personally and professionally, but paralyzed by fear and indecision.
Oh, I think we've all been there at some point. It's that classic feeling of wanting something different but not knowing where to start.
And Strade's advice is all about taking action, even if it's imperfect. She encourages the writer to embrace discomfort and recognize that growth happens outside of our comfort zones.
So instead of waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect plan, just start moving.
Exactly. Start small, set intentions, make a plan, and take consistent steps towards your goals.
It's like that saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
All right, this next one is from WTF, and they're dealing with the aftermath of a traumatic experience.
Oh, man, that's rough. Trauma can be so difficult to process.
It can. And Strayed, again, draws on her own experience. She talks about the long-lasting impact of trauma, the confusion, the pain, the feeling of being lost.
And does she offer any advice on how to cope?
She encourages WTF to seek professional help, find support groups, and find healthy ways to express their emotions.
That makes sense. Trauma is complex, and it often requires professional guidance and support to heal.
Exactly. And what's so powerful about Strade's response is that she doesn't offer quick fixes or easy answers. She just acknowledges the pain and offers hope that healing is possible.
It's a reminder that you're not alone and that there's light at the end of the tunnel, even when things feel incredibly dark.
This next letter is about a topic that can be really challenging to talk about: sex work. The writer is a woman who's considering it to make ends meet, but she's feeling conflicted.
I bet. There's so much stigma surrounding sex work. It's not an easy decision to make.
And to make things even more complicated, her husband is the one who suggested it.
Oh, wow. That adds a whole other layer to it.
It does. And Strade's response is incredibly empowering. She tells this woman to listen to her intuition, to recognize that her worth isn't tied to her financial situation, and that she has the right to say no.
It's her body, her choice. And no amount of financial pressure should ever force her to compromise her own well-being.
Exactly. Okay, ready for another heavy one?
Hit me with it.
This letter is from someone who's been sexually assaulted and is struggling with whether or not to tell their partner.
Oh, wow. That's a tough situation. There's so much fear around disclosure, worry about being judged or rejected.
And Strade's advice is to share their truth. She emphasizes that true love involves acceptance and support, even in the face of painful experiences.
Yeah. Sharing those vulnerable parts of yourself can be scary, but it can also deepen intimacy and build trust.
Exactly. It's about finding a partner who can hold space for your pain and support you through the healing process.
All right, what's next on our straight adventure?
This one is about navigating differences within a relationship, specifically when it comes to sexual preferences. The writer is struggling with their partner's, let's just say, unique tastes.
Ooh, interesting. I can see how that could create some tension.
It does. And Strade's advice is all about honesty and open communication. She encourages the writer to explore their own boundaries and to talk to their partner about what they're comfortable with and what feels off limits.
Makes sense. Healthy relationships are about more than just passion. They require respect, understanding, and a willingness to find solutions that work for both partners.
Okay, this next letter deals with a situation that's both personal and political. Conversion therapy.
Oh, that's a really sensitive topic.
It is. The writer is struggling because their parents have sent their younger sibling to conversion therapy camp.
That's awful. Conversion therapy has been widely discredited and can be incredibly harmful.
Exactly. And the writer is torn between staying loyal to their family and knowing that conversion therapy is wrong.
What does Strayed suggest?
She encourages the writer to advocate for their sibling, to educate their parents about the dangers of conversion therapy.
Yeah, sometimes you have to be the voice of reason, even when it's difficult, especially when it comes to protecting someone who's vulnerable.
Okay, this next letter is for anyone who's ever felt the isolating pain of grief. The writer is dealing with the aftermath of a miscarriage, and she's feeling lost and alone.
Miscarriage is such a taboo topic, even though it's sadly more common than people realize.
It is. And Strayed, drawing from her own experiences, emphasizes the importance of allowing yourself to grieve, to feel the pain, the sadness, the anger, all of it.
Yeah, trying to suppress those emotions just makes things worse in the long run.
Right. And she encourages the writer to seek out support, whether it's through therapy, support groups, or connecting with others who've experienced similar loss.
It's a reminder that you're not alone, and there's no shame in reaching out for help when you need it.
Okay, remember how we were talking earlier about how no relationship is perfect?
Yeah, that whole throw out the fairy tale ending thing.
This next letter is from someone who's really grappling with that. They're feeling disillusioned after witnessing the breakdown of their role model couple's marriage.
Oof. It's tough when the people you look up to, the ones who seem to have it all figured out, fall apart.
It is. And Strait's response is so honest and relatable. She talks about her own experience with infidelity in her marriage, reminding the writer that even the strongest relationships face challenges.
Yeah, relationships are a journey, not a destination. They require constant work, communication, and a willingness to weather the storms together.
Okay, this next one is from Ruler, and we've actually heard from him before.
Wait, Ruler, isn't that the father who was struggling with addiction and depression?
That's him. And he's still struggling, feeling overwhelmed by his responsibilities, like he's drowning.
Man, that's tough. Addiction and depression are not easy battles to fight.
They're not. And Strait's response is so full of compassion. She reminds him that he's not alone, that seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness.
And I bet she encourages him to keep talking to his wife.
She does. She says even though it's hard to be vulnerable and share those struggles, it's essential for building a stronger foundation for their marriage.
Communication is key, right? Even when it's difficult.
This next letter is from someone who's feeling that classic pull between their dreams and their fears. They long for adventure, for a creative life, but they're held back by self-doubt and worry about what others will think.
Oh, yeah. I know that feeling all too well. It's so easy to get stuck in your head and let fear paralyze you.
And Strait's advice is all about trusting your gut and taking that leap of faith. She reminds the writer that the only true failure is not trying.
So embrace the unknown and go for it, even if it's scary.
Exactly. And she talks about how the path to fulfillment is rarely a straight line. It's about embracing the detours, the unexpected turns, and trusting that you'll find your way.
And that defining success is a personal thing. It's not about meeting someone else's expectations. It's about creating a life that feels authentic and meaningful to you.
Okay, this next letter is from someone who's trapped in a toxic family environment. Their parents are constantly fighting, creating this atmosphere of tension and negativity.
Man, that's rough. Family dynamics can be so challenging, especially when there's a lot of conflict.
And Strait's advice is about recognizing that you can't control other people's behavior, but you can control how you respond.
So setting boundaries, protecting yourself from that negativity.
Exactly. She encourages the writer to limit contact, to focus on creating a safe and supportive environment for themselves, even if it means distancing themselves from their family.
Sometimes self-preservation is the most loving act.
Okay, remember Odd Man Out, the guy who overheard his friends gossiping? Well, he wrote back.
Oh, interesting. What did he say?
He took Strait's advice and talked to his friends about how their words made him feel.
And how did that go?
Well, it was a bit messy, but ultimately it led to a deeper understanding and stronger friendships. They apologized, acknowledged their part in the situation, and committed to being more mindful of their words and actions.
That's great. It just goes to show that honest communication, even when it's uncomfortable, can really make a difference in relationships.
Okay, so in the 10th anniversary edition, we get some new material, including Strait's reflections on her time as Sugar.
I'm curious to hear what she has to say about that experience. I imagine it was pretty intense, holding space for so many people's stories.
It was. And she talks about how challenging it was, but also how incredibly rewarding. She learned so much about herself and about the human experience through reading those letters and responding with honesty and vulnerability.
It's like she created this incredible community, this space where people could share their deepest fears and desires without judgment.
And she talks about how reading those letters reminded her that we're not alone in our struggles, that there's comfort in shared experience and hope in knowing that others have navigated similar challenges.
Okay, what are some of the new letters that stood out to you?
There's one from Spent, someone struggling with depression who finds solace in a virtual prayer group.
A virtual prayer group. That's interesting.
It is. And what's so cool is that Spent doesn't even necessarily share the same religious beliefs as the group, but they find comfort in the rituals and the shared sense of community.
It's about that universal human need for connection, for belonging, for finding your tribe.
Exactly. And it reminds us that spirituality can take many forms.
Okay, what else? What other new letters caught your attention?
Oh, there's one from 25. Someone feeling totally lost and overwhelmed, like they have no idea what they're doing with their life.
Aha, the classic quarter-life crisis. I think we've all been there.
Right. And Strait's advice is so reassuring. She reminds them that it's okay to feel lost, that the journey is often the destination.
And that a sense of purpose often emerges through exploration and self-discovery.
Exactly. She encourages trusting your instincts, following your curiosity, and being open to new experiences.
Life's not a straight line. It's about embracing the twists and turns and trusting that you'll figure it out along the way.
Okay, this next one is from a strange daughter, and it's about the complex decision of whether or not to reach out to an estranged, narcissistic mother.
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. Family stuff can be so emotionally charged.
It can. And Strade's advice is all about prioritizing your own well-being. She reminds the writer that forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation.
So you can forgive someone without letting them back into your life.
Exactly. And she gives this example of sending a birthday card. It's a small gesture that acknowledges the relationship without necessarily opening the door for further manipulation or hurt.
It's about finding a balance that honors your own needs while still recognizing that family dynamics can be really complicated.
Okay, the last new letter is from someone who's feeling really overwhelmed by the state of the world, struggling to find hope amidst all the darkness and injustice.
Yeah, I can relate to that. It's easy to feel despair when you look at everything that's happening in the world.
It is. And Strade's response is a powerful call to action. She reminds us that even small acts of kindness and compassion can make a difference.
So it's about finding ways to channel that despair into something positive, whether it's through activism, volunteering, or just being kind to the people around us.
Exactly. It's a reminder that we have the power to create positive change, both in our own lives and in the world. And that even in the darkest of times, hope can be found in collective action and in believing in our shared humanity.
And speaking of shared humanity, there's one more thing from the 10th anniversary edition that I have to mention. It's not a letter, but it's just so straight. She answers a few general questions, and one of them is, what would you like to tell us about sex?
Oh, yeah. And her answer: snakes, hummingbirds, perhaps a polar bear.
What? That's so cryptic and awesome at the same time.
Right. It's so straight. And I think it speaks to the mystery. It does. It speaks to the mystery and the multifaceted nature of sexuality. It's not just one thing. It's a whole spectrum of experiences and emotions.
And it's about embracing the individuality of our own desires, figuring out what works for us, what feels good, what feels right.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into tiny, beautiful things, what are your overall thoughts on the book? What really stood out to you?
I think what struck me most is how Strayed, through her honesty and her own vulnerability, creates this space for genuine human connection.
Right. She's not afraid to tackle tough topics, and she doesn't pretend to have all the answers.
Exactly. And she doesn't shy away from sharing her own struggles. It makes her so much more relatable, like she's right there with us, figuring things out as she goes along.
Totally. And I think that's what makes this book so powerful. It's a reminder that we're not alone in our struggles, that there's beauty to be found in our imperfections, and that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope for healing, growth, and connection.
I love that. It's like she's giving us permission to be messy and human and to embrace all the complexities of life.
Yeah, and to ask those hard questions, Like, she talks about the importance of asking better questions. It's not just about getting advice. It's about engaging in deeper self-exploration, a more nuanced understanding of ourselves and the world.
And that's something we can all benefit from no matter where we are in life.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a question, something to ponder as they go about their day. What are the questions that keep you up at night? The deeper truths you're yearning to uncover?
And how can you approach those questions with a sense of curiosity, with honesty, with a willingness to embrace all the messy, beautiful complexities of being human?
Beautifully said. And if you're looking for more strayed wisdom, definitely check out her memoir, Wild, and her novel, Torch.
Both amazing reads. And of course, if you haven't already, grab a copy of Tiny Beautiful Things and experience the magic of Sugar's advice for yourself.
It's one of those books you can return to again and again, and each time you'll find something new, something that speaks to where you are in that moment.
It's like having a wise and compassionate friend guiding you along the way.
And reminding you to pay attention to those tiny, beautiful things, even in the midst of chaos and uncertainty.
Absolutely. Well said.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into tiny, beautiful things. Until next time, keep seeking those tiny, beautiful things.